on stage in audio. Look at this. Right, so why do we need to increase the diversity of crews in sports broadcasting? Why? Why is it necessary?
I think we're getting a way of working where we're solving problems and we're working with production in the same way. People are training each other, they're moving on, they work in the same way. And then you introduce a woman or someone from a diverse background to that and they'll have a different way of thinking. Just bring a little bit of something else to the table, maybe calm a situation or find a quicker way of working something out. And then if you have maybe one and then you increase that and you have two and then try and promote that out into the world, people see that it's a place they can go to that they didn't know they could. They didn't know it was an exciting job and a really creative job that they had any access to whatsoever. And if you start just with the first few and then you promote that, you'll start bringing more in and it's more ideas and the whole business and the way you're working all moves forward. It's always moving forward with new ideas.
Yeah.
That's how I find.
Yeah, Rachel said that really perfectly. I think it's equality, it's bringing new ideas, it's more interesting and different awarenesses as well. I think the more type of diversity you have, you're also having more of an awareness of different people's experiences and their end result of the experience. And so I think it creates a different sensitivity to that as well. Different people in different walks of life brings that out. So I think it's really important and it's fun. It looks different, it sounds different, it makes for a more varied and nicer working environment, and it gives all types of people a place to go to feel safe and to discuss and work in the way that they do uniquely, but all achieving the same goal.
Absolutely. Cool.
Yeah, everything they said.
Ditto. So I often get asked this one. People acknowledge the fact that diversity is important, but then they're like, but we can't find them. How do we find them? Because they're not coming through the usual routes that they used to. So any thoughts on how do we find you, Hazel?
I mean, I was quite a bold person and I always knew what I wanted to do, but I think it starts actually from quite a young age because it's exposure. I actually went to quite a good primary school. I was exposed to quite a lot of different industries.
Yeah.
And as well, just on my background, I was a performing child, so I knew that there was a backstage. I actually used to get told off being on stage because I'd be looking at the wings being like, what's happening there? Way more interesting. But I knew that, and my mum luckily supported me in pursuing that, and I would just go and find what I wanted. But I think as well, culturally, there's all different backgrounds come from different things. So being an ethnic person from, I'm first and a half generations of coming from another country, immigrant demographic, I think there's obviously an expectation as to what is expected of you when you come through that. And I think the more exposure to realise that actually we're paid very well. Like, there's money in this, it's not just being a doctor and all that kind of stuff. Once the jobs, the industry is actually more exposed to all types of people,
yes,
there will be more encouragement or acceptance to be able to come into this type of field as well. Because there's also a lot of stigma and not a lot of acceptance culturally in coming into, for some cultures, but coming into something that isn't your uniform, stable,
it's an unknown.
This is it, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
As I said, that helps for in the north as well. So I do outreach programs for careers fairs in the northwest, and he would just go into a local secondary school or primary school. They see me and they go, "Wow, I can do that job." And you're not expected coming from that area that it's a job that's accessible to you. And so to have someone that you can go out and go, right, you're the people I want to speak to because you're the next generation that can come up and do this. And it's got to be getting the people that are that age, the primary school and the secondary school students are the ones you've got to target, because otherwise you're going into college now, and if they're not in that college class, you've failed already.
Yeah, I know a lot of the universities here in the audience as well have that problem. They're just not applying. But Rachel, you've experimented at Sky with different ways of interviewing graduates and finding them.
I think
tell us about
it's creating, if we create this junior trainee position, which very, very many companies have cut back on now. We didn't have one for a long time, so we recently introduced it again. And therefore we made a video with all the people in our department right across the board, from juniors to, from operators through to seniors and team leaders, all talking about their experience. And we had a really diverse range of people in that video and put that as part of the advert. And it was phenomenal how many people we had. We'd said that it's not that you have to have years of experience. You don't have to have done a technical audio course. Just come and, put yourself forward. And we did have over 500 applicants for that for 2 places. And then we shortlisted that down to people who maybe had a little experience, maybe in radio or theatre or just done something voluntary, and brought them on site for a day with the rest of our department. We picked a few people out of the department and we set up tasks. So it was a problem-solving task, a basic audio task, just to see how people worked it out, whether they knew it or not, and a team-building task. And it was the people that they were going to work with who assessed them in a way. They worked with them and helped them out, and then they fed that back to us. We then did a formal interview, and from that we managed to find 2 excellent people over here, 2 excellent women who just stood out to the whole team as, you know, creative, forward-thinking, enthusiastic, and technology can now be taught to them now. They can learn the way we work. But they're coming with those fundamental skills already of just teamwork and enthusiasm, and they want it.
So rather than just going off a bit of paper and
rather than going, there's your CV, oh, they've never done sound
you're giving
before.
them a chance to perform.
And you bring them in at that point, and again, you promote that, and people start going, oh, that could be me, that could be me. And when they would never think that they ever stood a chance in Sky and in the industry.
Sure. And so let's pretend we've got the job. Well done, both of you.
There's Laura and Noah over there.
And you're in the door, Hazel, and now you're in that. So I also meet a lot of people, and you're a perfect example of people that are in that in-between job. So for the Americans in the audience, in between, you know, the A2 and the A1, or, you know, you want to get up to that supervisor level. So tell us about where you are on the career ladder.
So because of my kind of different route into the industry,
Tell us about that.
So I started off I first walked into a recording studio when I was 14. I wanted to be a record producer, sound engineer. Went to see a musical when I was 17 and fell in love with live sound. I thought it was phenomenal. So walked up to the sound number 1 there and said, I want to do your job. How do we make this happen? So worked experience my way through and got through. I'd already picked my uni courses. They weren't really relating to live sound, so I didn't know it existed. So I ended up dropping out of uni twice. And I started to work my way up. I was in theatre for a long time, used to mix, run departments, all that type of stuff, travelled a lot with work. Then I was like, okay, I also want to work in sound in all areas. And I approached a friend of mine who works in TV, and again just said, can I come in shadows to see how this all is? They were like, well, great, you do know sound. I kind of showed myself I'm not a complete novice. But I started to work my way up that way in TV side of things. So I'm an assistant most of the time, but also I have mixing experience. I want to use my ears, but I haven't had the formal training. I didn't go to Ravensbourne, didn't know it existed at the time when I could have been going. So I have been trying to push myself to take opportunities. Obviously, I don't want to scare myself and do anything too big. I respect the people who have way more experience than me who are supervisors, but I can operate a desk. I've got ears. I understand how that works. So I've taken opportunities where I've done that, but also I need support. I'm a freelancer. I don't have a place where I can have formal everyday daily training or anything. So I kind of need the support and there's a bunch of peers of mine who we're too old and too responsible in life to do a traineeship or do an apprenticeship. We've got mortgages to pay. However, I also, I'm not experienced enough to jump in and do, lead on something, the Olympics kind of thing. So we need the support. I need, it needs to be thought about if there is a maybe slightly smaller scale sport being shown or something, which is what's happening. I'm starting to mix a kind of lower level rugby, but I need the support and the space and understanding that I'm not going to be perfect. Don't spotlight me just because I'm the woman who's going to do it. Don't put all that pressure on me. However, do communicate. And I'm very honest in saying I'm not technical in this bit, or I don't understand that bit. Don't roll your eyes. Don't do that. Just create the space and the platform, and you have to provide, maybe provide a team around to help guide us through this, because I know there's less money and everything happening. I don't understand the ins and outs of that because that's not my job. I'm a sound person. But it's just trying to figure out ways to create space. There's a lot of policies from a lot of companies saying they're going to do this, but you have to follow it through. You can't just do the traineeship, the entry level, and then you just leave us. It's the glass ceiling thing.
Totally, yes. And Lucy, you got Hazel to work for you for the BBC Sport in Paris, didn't you? So, and I understand the job role grew slightly. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so as a last-minute addition to all the plans, we had an announced platform come up at a venue, and I needed a floor assistant. So it started out I just need a floor assistant to look after the presenter and a couple of guests, just miking them up. You'll be fine. So I rang Hazel and I was like, are you interested? It's a week work in Paris. It's on the Olympics. And she was like, yeah, all for it. And then as it moved on, nearer and nearer the time, I didn't contact Hazel again because I knew all accreditation and everything was done, but all the plans kind of expanded and it became, do all the comms for the camera operators, do all the comms for lighting, do this. You've got a brand new, you've got a very old sound desk. It's not brand new. You've got a very old sound desk I'm going to give you that's probably older than you, and you're going to operate that and do all the routing. But what we did was in the IBC, I had engineers that had done all the prep work and all the rig work and done all the paperwork that could go out and help Hazel just during the setup, and then during the every day-to-day thing where she was lining up with Salford, just being there on hand, ready to help, because they knew exactly what was needed and what help she would need. But because of her life background in theatre, I didn't have a problem. It was like I had every confidence that she was going to be fine. I just didn't tell her before she turned up that it had grown.
Yeah, it was a bit of a shock for me when I turned up on site. A little shock.
But you handled it, obviously.
She nailed it.
You're still talking.
Thanks.
Cool. And so, for the managers here, I mean, do we need more managers in audio to take risks and provide these opportunities? Because the risk isn't only for the younger person or the person with less experience, it's also on you too, isn't it? So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, it's that putting the time in, again, bringing that entry level. I'm afraid that to me is when we advertise for everything, get very few women or people from diverse backgrounds coming for a supervisor type position. So you create that entry level and you put the time in, and you give them the opportunity so that and you don't have to be 16 to be on an entry level position, but it's more and they're not bad paid. But it's putting that time in, having that conversation and keeping them on that path that's going to encourage and help them to grow and help them achieve, put them just slightly out the comfort zone. And again, it's getting the whole team to support them. Your whole department is going to support these people as they move through the layers, through the operator to supervisor. And you've got to keep having the conversation with them, see how they're going. Sometimes you'll have a training plan and you're supposed to know this, you're supposed to know Riedel by then, and you're supposed to know this, and you find that they're not learning that way. So you have to adapt that way of training, that maybe people are more site-based learning or experience learning. Some like reading manuals like crazy, and it's finding those things and that way of pushing people through, giving them the confidence.
Sure, yeah. What about you?
It's getting people in, so you could have a diverse workforce, but if they're not feeling included, you've got to make sure that they feel included as well. So when I joined BBC Resources like 20 odd years ago, I used to joke that I would sit there in the pub after work with my 6 dads, but I was never felt like I wasn't part of the team. I was always there with my 6 dads in the pub, and you'd find something to talk about, but it was that feeling of I never felt like the only girl on the crew. I was always part and included, and we've still got to maintain that. It was really good then to do that, and it still feels like that now, but there's still a lot of work to be done. It feels harder now in the position I'm currently in, walking into a meeting room and I'm talking and going, yeah, but I feel more alone now probably than I did when I was junior, if that makes sense.
And because you now have 8 women out of 44 in the sound team at Sky.
There was 2 when I joined,
Yeah, and then you actively look to recruit women into your teams as well. So both active, but highly active. Yes.
Can I just say, on that point of you and your dads in the at the pub after work, I think that is also quite an interesting point to expose, because, like I said, I remember one time being sat in the middle of York with 5 middle-aged white men, but I loved it. They were lovely, of course, and this is not a man bash against any of you guys and what we're saying at all. It was so beautiful, because I loved that even for myself 10 years beforehand. I would never have expected to see that group in a pub together. That's the beauty of our industry. But actually, it's quite interesting, again, as a teenager, I would never think I could just hang out and just talk to a bunch of dudes of a different age group to me and maybe different experiences to me, and still work really professionally, really well, and also just get on. It's actually that beauty in our industry is something that we should also be exposing, that it's not that scary and intimidating. It is, but it can be a really beautiful union of people,
I think, and on that note, it's it's very tempting, I think, particularly if you come into, I similarly came into an industry with a lot of more older blokes, and you don't actually have to change who you are. You can still be, I don't know, the daft northerner and whatever. And you don't have to conform, you don't, and there's quite often, back then, I was 27 years ago, was if I was sort of stronger or was putting my opinion forward, it was kind of, oh, bossy, oh, watch out, here she comes, you know. And I'm like, okay, but I'm still going to be me. I'm not going to be meek. I'm not going to be how you expect me to be. Yeah. You know, I'm not going to just sort of go and get your coffees. There's no way. I'm getting on that desk. And it's about keeping your true self when you go into that environment. It's a terrifying environment. I mean, bless you all, look at this room. There's, you know, a young woman walking into here, if you were all people that they work with, it'd be like, oh my goodness.
This is a closed shop. It's
Yeah.
not for me.
Yeah, it's a closed shop.
It doesn't reflect the general population.
Yeah.
Your co-workers don't just reflect the general population.
Yeah,
There's something wrong.
yeah. And you naturally, yeah, you naturally want to conform, and you think, I better not say that, and whereas I mean, I'm just me, and so I was a bit rude, a bit this, and we enjoyed those days working together, didn't we, Carl? But it's terrifying as well. So, but people are naturally quiet and shy as well, and you've got to make sure they're not consumed by the dominant people around them.
I mean, hopefully going forwards, you know, you guys all knew what you wanted and you went out and got it, and you were like, room full of men, okay, let's do it. But the quieter women out there perhaps would have gone, oh no, I'm going. But now you can make space for those women as well, can't you? So,
Yeah,
so they can feel
now
confident. They see
it's
themselves.
great to be in a position to have gone through all those roles to
Yeah.
now be in a position where I can say, hang on, let's not forget about this
Yes.
person with all their talent just because they're not standing up in the
Yeah.
meeting and saying, oh, what about me?
And also they can look at you guys and go, oh, there's me, I can do this.
Yeah.
Cool. And then another issue that sometimes gets skirted around is childcare and, you know, going away, leaving the workforce, having children. And I know you, Lucy, and you, Rachel, have both experienced this, but you've had very different experiences. So, Lucy, do you want to tell us briefly about your experience of having a child then coming back into the workforce?
Yeah, so it was, I had a child, and then it was more, the onus was on me to find out what would work for the company when I came back. So at the time I wasn't BBC staff, I worked for a separate company, and they weren't particularly supportive. It was, well, can you still work 12-hour shifts? Can you still do this? And you're like, well, there's no nursery, so no, I can't, there's just nothing. I have to pick a child up, so it's not there. So I ended up, I needed a job to go back to, so that's why I remained staff and not went freelance. But then I just went, my parents helped me out and said, we'll look after every Saturday, so you can work every Saturday. And I worked 1 day a week on a football programme, just so that I still had a job and I could still be me at work. But then with the second child, the same issues were still there. I was like, well, what do I do now? I've still got to find a nursery, I've still got to find something else. And the company just didn't seem to want to help or made me feel like I couldn't do my job anymore. And you're like, well, I can still do my job. I've not had half my brain removed. I've just got 2 children. And it was trying to find that balance and going, all right, well, it's on me again. I've got to find out how this is going to work for me and for the company and make sure I don't have to leave the industry. And it was really tough. But now I do a job where I got promoted, so I can go home every night and I do more office-based or I work from home. But I miss the fun because I don't do the fun job anymore, which is making TV programmes.
Yeah, mine was, I mean, it was similar, but to me it was as if I was the first woman as well to have a child in our department, and it was basically as if nothing had happened. So it was literally, one day she was huge and now she's back and she's not. And it's a case of, yeah, even while pregnant, it was like, don't you think you're getting any special treatment? You know, you still pick up those cables and take them over. And I just went through, I pushed through, I just went, right, I'll show you, you know, and I did, probably at detriment of my own health, and afterwards, coming back, was again exactly the same. Well, I don't care, you're doing the 5 a.m. starts. No, you are, that's it. And there was never that dialogue. never what can we do to help. It was very much just crack on. And it was a new thing for our department. So I think what that now wonderfully means is that I've got a different perspective on how to be now. But it was just as if it's not happened at all.
So there needs to be a balance, doesn't there, between crack on, nothing's happened, and oh my God, what are you? You're a completely different human.
You're going to be all pathetic and weak now.
Yes, yeah. But Sky has moved on.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, luckily we have. I mean, back then there was another woman who I was working with at the time. She got pregnant and she did leave because she couldn't cope with that. So now bringing that perspective to it, it's about having that conversation while they're pregnant. Is a lot of protection, and making sure they're not working alone and they're not putting themselves in dangerous situations. And we can be that flexible. We've got so many resources available to us. We can get other people to do that show, but they can still come and be on that show. You don't expect you to pick things up and carry things around that way. But it's more when people return to have that conversation and have that flexibility for them and the business. You can't just say, yeah, of course, we'll pay you all the time, and you never come. But it's working it out that what works for them. And also there's the different stages. There's the literally just come back. There's a year later. There's 2 years later. There's the kids are going to school. And all the way keeping that dialogue going. But what can we do for you now at this stage? And what can we do for you at the next stage? But mainly, as you were saying, is to keep them also on their career path. So you keep having that conversation of what they still want to achieve. Some women come back and go, oh, so glad I'm away from home. Can I just get stuck into this football match and I'll be so happy and I don't have to think about that. And some are constantly worrying about what's happening at home, and they just all need everyone is going to be different when they come back.
Yes,
and everyone needs that conversation and that constant attention.
Yes, yeah. And then in looking at people from different backgrounds, you've got working class backgrounds, you've got different diversities, how do we bring people from multiple different backgrounds, particularly diversity? I mean, diversity can mean working class, which can mean less money for travel. It can mean parents that are immigrants and therefore have different work and cultural expectations. So how do we what do we need to consider to make sure that those people are supported properly as well? Have you got any thoughts, Haze?
I just think communication is really important. I think it is great. Obviously, there are a lot of charities out there. There's helplines. There's posters on emails. You'll get a lot of things of you can contact these people. But I think just talk to your colleagues. You know, let's face it. You will see your diverse person in your department. Go and speak to them and ask them what they need. It's not just about, well, did you fill the form in? Okay, fine. We just need a lot of dialogue and a lot of time and just sensitivity. There's a lot of people, I've got, outside of this industry, I've got a best friend from the Philippines. As soon as you start to make money, everything has to get sent back home. So it's like the money for transport and everything, even though you go, well, you've got this, other things are happening in the background, so it's just being aware and just, again, it's just time and making sure that's in place and just actually communicating and asking people what they want. I don't know what a blind person would need. I'm not going to make an assumption for them or go, well, they'll just deal with it. No, I want to ask them. They might not want it to be highlighted, but they might, So I think it's really important just to always create a safe space at all times and not just have the one designated person or the one designated room, because again, that can feel quite spotlighting and going, oh, everyone's seen me go into this room, or everyone's seen me do this. Like, it's a lot. It can be quite, it's exposing, isn't it, sometimes? It's overwhelming, yeah.
I think also, and in that environment of communicating, I think if you have a group of people who are similar, we have started a Women in Sound group, and they'll meet every month. They can have a real good old go at anything they want. They can talk about anyone and share their experiences. And I'm finding it really difficult dealing with that presenter. How did you do it? And gain, get them together, get people together, and get people finding solutions together. And then as a united front, they can take it to management and go, we've got an issue here. Whereas if it's just you on your own, you may feel like, I don't know if I want to say anything.
I mean, I support through SVG Women, Mama Youth Project, which is based at Sky, and Bob Clark that runs that is absolutely fantastic. He's amazing. But when I've spoken to him, he said one of the biggest issues that they have is they get all these diverse people in, but that can mean young white women that are out of university and can't find a job, can't find their entry into what they need because they don't have the right contacts, or people from estates that have no idea these jobs almost exist and want to be they want to be a presenter, and then they train them up, and then they produce a Sky Arts program, and they do loads of work, and they do placements, long placements as well. I think it's 10 or 12 weeks, and then hopefully they go on to get a job. But he said the big problem is these companies, they tick the box. They've got the young woman, or they've got the person from working class background, or they've got the young black kid, and then that's it. They don't help them go any further. And then within 4 years, they've completely changed industry, because he said most of them don't stay, because they aren't given this support. So
yeah, and so it's promoting them, as I say. Like, and if you're putting out a promotional video for a job advert, include everyone right across the board, and somebody will see it and go, I didn't know I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that was anywhere near anything I could do.
Yeah.
And then they come forward.
Cool.
Please come forward.
So as our first session talking about this subject in audio in this room, you can see that there is a lot. I mean, the topics we're covering today is stuff that at SVG Women we spoke about in the very first meetings we did, which was in 2018. So we were talking about these topics back then, and now, I mean, the year after it changed to women being experts in their industry, talking about doing events, sport, talking about technology. But we're only talking about this now in the end of 2024. We're talking about this in audio, which I think really highlights where we are kind of in audio. So we do need more. And I've also found out today that, well, I knew it before, but I've been added to a cool WhatsApp group, it's just for women in audio, but actually women working in audio. So I'm kind of hiding at the back. But if you do know anyone that, it's for jobs. This is coming up, this is happening, rah, rah. So if you do know any women in audio, introduce them to me, and I can see if they want to go on this and pass them over to the person, Joe, that runs the WhatsApp group over there. But yeah, there's over 100 women on it at the moment, so it's big. There's a huge resource of employees.
Exactly. Can I also just say as well?
Yes.
At the end of the day, a lot of us we've got families, you've got cousins, nephews, sisters, whoever. It's also you guys. It's really making it open to your family members even, and the classes, the schools. You interact with all people, all young people. So really do try and speak and encourage, and not just bring your kid to school. Maybe a bunch or a class will take your colleagues into the schools. It's all of us have to do something to expose it all.
If women can ring up and say, I can't come into work because my kid's ill, so can you. You can ring up and say, I can't come into work.
Exactly, it's
so
all
it
of
helps
us.
everybody.
Absolutely.
It's not just helping women by ringing these parent issues or these I've got a problem issue. And we all know that the best sound mixers in the world are really, really autistic and shy. So find that shy one and bring them forward. It doesn't have to be women or, everybody needs to be included, because it definitely improves.
I think amongst management that needs to be, it's a very conscious decision to do that. We support men just as much. I mean, I have so many flexible working agreements for half the department that I need to do this on that day, my child this, my wife's that, I need to be there for that. And it's supporting both sides, all sides, through parenthood. And therefore it's not they're getting special treatment in any way. It's across the company, it's all just sort of keep hold of people, not have people leave because they've had a child. We can all provide that flexibility and that support so that we keep these people that we've spent a long time training, and they're excellence in their field, and they leave. No, come on.
Yeah. And do we have any questions for our panel?
I'll start out. Give myself permission to ask a question. I guess, Rachel, we heard Carl talk about sort of the transition to production hubbing, where most of his personnel are working in the hub in Stanford. That's true of Sky, too. How has this sort of move to production hubbing helped improve diversity in terms of training, opportunities?
Oh, I mean, we have always based our training on passing down the knowledge through the layers. So as people promote, they then pass down the others. We do bespoke one-to-one learning, like you need to learn Riedel. Let's give that one a go. And again, the same, we take the same principle of everyone is learning at such different ways. You can't just do let's do a presentation. You should all learn.
As we move away from doing production in the venue and move to
Yeah.
the sky campus,
Yeah.
then
In remote production and that sort of environment. I mean, the opportunity.
does that help that we have accessible, we're not climbing ladders, and the control room doesn't shut down after the match is done? There are more opportunities for learning.
I think so, but I mean, I think also there's very few women out on OBs, and I think that I wouldn't consider in any way that was a different environment. I think I understand what you're trying to say. Is you mean bringing everyone together is a better learning environment, or are you saying without them having to be out on the road?
Well, I think when they're on the road, they're on their own because you're not surrounded by other
Yeah.
sound supervisors or sound assistants.
Yeah.
Like, you learn better in an hospital than you're going to in a truck.
Definitely, yeah, yeah.
Many people that have the time or
Well, and Australia doesn't shut down after the truck
No.
shut down. Someone can't even look.
It is a very useful place to do our training, and again, people who may be from different backgrounds or women and they prefer don't like asking these questions of an older guy who might be patronising, etc. They've got that environment of other women to learn from, of other people to learn from, and also from different ethnic groups. Maybe they prefer that. I feel much more comfortable in this environment, and yes, we're constantly in a position to be able to train because we're always on. Yeah.
We've got time for one more question if anyone else has one. Ooh. You were first, sorry.
No, just full disclosure, I work at Global Academy, and I used to work at LSU with former student. To me, it's a reasonably simple solution. You start with kids at 14, you go through to 19, 18, 19. Don't have to go to university. I could go into jobs from there. The Global give 8 apprenticeships a year. Over half of our kids are female, so it's always been that skew. So from the industry, we need the kit, the expertise passed down to us, and we'll do that job for you, and we will give you the diverse workforce you want, rather than you having to advertise, look for it, find people. We can do that for you, and you have to go down the line to us at our level, which is a high school level. The barrier of paying nearly 10 grand a year for university isn't there for us, so it does open it right up. The amount of kids we've got from incredibly different backgrounds through to Sky, Global, BBC, you name it. There's an assistant commissioner at BBC now, age 23, young black person. So, it's there for them, but the industry's got to come down to our level, ask us what we need, and then you provide it for us, we will provide you.
Oh, thank you.
Again, it's about not just advertising in the normal places. You don't just go LinkedIn and walk away. Finding those other avenues of places to raise that awareness that people don't actually have to come incredibly technically savvy. They can come with many other skills, and we'll see those skills, and we're prepared to put the time in. It's reaching out further when you're advertising, isn't it?
There's a lot of push with STEM projects, isn't there? STEM projects for girls and everything, but it's also needing to connect it to this industry. Great, you can be an engineer, you can be a sound engineer, you can be an audio engineer, you can be a broadcast engineer. It's relating it. There's been like a kind of big thing of going, well, that's just creative, but we're technical too. And the same with the manual side of things. I was on tour, pulling cable, lifting speakers, rigging, up a ladder, in a harness. It's also shown that we can do that too, but we're not all delicate flowers. I love getting right in it and lifting and all that kind of stuff. I don't have to pay for gym membership. It's brilliant. So it's just showing that it is multifaceted, but also as a female, I think we kind of, some of us are quite encouraged that, well, I couldn't lift that or anything. Yeah, you can. Because no one lifts a big heavy thing by themselves. Guess what? We all get around it and we all lift it. And it's just kind of really sometimes having to break it down to that point that you will be supported in doing this. It's okay.
Well, on that is that the whole department needs to know, though, that also if somebody doesn't want to do, someone isn't capable of it, that's fine too. I think it's not that you are now a weakling and you're never going to get a chance to do this again. You have to keep putting people in a position where they can make that choice themselves and feed it back to us. Actually, I felt really uncomfortable doing that, or I didn't like that environment, and we can mould the business around that.
Fab. And on that note, please give my panel a round of applause. Thank you.